Think about a baby learning to walk. I mean, they fall countless times, right? But do they give up?
Nope.
No, they just keep going and going until, they're running marathons.
But at some point, we've got to actually speak. Chatting with other learners.
I mean, that can be helpful, but you might end up reinforcing each other's mistakes.
It's funny. We talk a lot about understanding English, right? Like listening to podcasts or watching movies, but actually speaking it fluently. That's a
Yeah.
whole other challenge, isn't it?
It is. It is. It really is. You're right. It's like you can kind of get to a point where you feel like you can unlock a lot of the world of, let's say, movies and podcasts and things like that. But to really like be able to just have a natural, free-flowing conversation,
Yeah.
that's
That's the real another challenge.
yeah, it's like the key secret level or
To
something.
that, yeah. I think the key to that level is what we call unconscious competence. It's that state where you're not thinking about grammar rules, you're just speaking. It's like when you have that moment and you realize you're dreaming in another language.
Right.
You're not thinking about the translation in your head. It just is.
Yes. Or think about riding a bike. At first, you're all wobbly, you're thinking about every pedal stroke, and then one day it just clicks. You're not thinking about how to balance, you just are balancing.
Right, right.
That's unconscious competence.
So how do we get that click to happen with English?
Well, that's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
right? Honestly, traditional language learning, I think, often misses the mark. It sort of drills these grammar rules into you, which is great. That gives you like what we would call conscious knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
which is great for tests,
Yeah.
not so great for, having a conversation.
Right. You can't be sitting there in the middle of a conversation like diagramming sentences in your head.
Exactly. Imagine trying to, I don't know, play the piano while reading every note on the sheet music.
Right?
You'd freeze up.
You would.
Speaking fluently is really about training your brain, and you do that through massive input. So that's exposure to real, authentic English, just like when you learned your first language as a child.
So like watching movies, listening to music, listening to podcasts, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. But here's the catch. It has to be enjoyable. If you're forcing yourself to consume content that you hate, it's not going to stick. I always think about it like this. I love Japanese culture, so I watch anime, I listen to J-pop, and the learning, it just becomes a natural side effect of me doing something that I love.
That's awesome. So finding your passions and then sort of letting the English naturally flow from that. If you like
Yeah,
cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you
exactly.
like true crime, I mean, you get the idea.
Precisely. And you don't need to dedicate hours on end. Listen while you're working out, doing chores, walking the dog, it's sneaky learning, I call it.
Sneaky learning. I like that. Okay, so we've got this enjoyable input is being key, but at some point, we've got to actually speak, right?
We do. We do.
It can't just be all input.
Input is crucial, but eventually, yeah, you need output. You need speaking practice,
Right.
but not just any kind of practice. It has to be driven by the input that you've absorbed.
So not just like chatting with other learners.
I mean, that can be helpful, but you might end up reinforcing each other's mistakes. I'm a big fan of techniques like, for example, shadowing. And you mimic native speakers to internalize their rhythm and their pronunciation, their intonation.
Like you almost become a vocal doppelganger of them?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
I used to do this thing where I would summarize YouTube videos in my own words, and it was actually great speaking practice, but it also helped me solidify my understanding of the content.
That's clever. So I choose like a clip, I listen to it carefully, I pause it, and then I just try to repeat it.
Exactly.
Like a parrot.
You got it.
Okay.
But try to really nail the nuances, the pauses, the emphasis. It's training your brain to produce those sounds naturally.
Yeah, but I think, one of the big things that holds people back is the fear factor, right?
Sure.
People are so terrified of making mistakes. I know I am
Of course.
when I try to speak.
It's totally natural. But remember, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone. Even native speakers. I mean, I still trip up sometimes, right?
Right.
And I'm a native English speaker.
Yeah.
Looking back, I can laugh at my, German blunders, let's say. but it's all part of the
It
process.
is. And I think we're always much harder on ourselves than other people would be.
Exactly. So be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Focus on progress, not perfection.
Right?
Celebrate every small win.
Yeah.
Language learning is a journey, not a race.
It is. It is. And finding, I think, a community, whether it's online or in person, can really help with that.
Absolutely.
Keeps you accountable, but it also, keeps you motivated.
It's like having a cheering section as you navigate this language learning adventure.
Yeah, I love that. So let me just recap here to make sure I'm following you. So we're talking about building unconscious competence through input. And that input needs to be something we enjoy. Then we've got output, which is the speaking practice, but it needs to be driven by that input.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then throughout this whole process, being kind to ourselves, celebrating the win and learning from the stumbles.
Beautifully put. It's all about embracing the process, the ups and the downs.
I like that. It's like that saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. Applies to English too, right?
Perfectly put. And as you practice, something amazing happens. Your brain actually starts to rewire itself. Yeah, it really does rewire itself. It's like upgrading your mental software to accommodate this new language.
Rewiring. I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, there's this area of your brain called Broca's area, and it's specifically responsible for speech production,
Huh.
and it needs to be trained like specifically for English.
So even if I understand spoken English, my brain still needs like a whole separate workout just to produce it.
Precisely. And that workout comes from, speaking practice, doing things like shadowing. But there's another layer too, right? There's the psychological one. We have to overcome those mental blocks that are holding us back.
Oh, I know all about those.
Yeah, right.
Like that fear of sounding silly.
Yes, exactly. We tend to be, much harder on ourselves than others would be. Like we overthink every little mistake. We overanalyze
Oh,
things.
it's so true. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. So it sounds like we need to be, a little bit kinder to ourselves then? Give
Yeah.
ourselves permission to be imperfect?
Exactly. Think about a baby learning to walk. I mean, they fall countless times, right? But do they give up?
Nope.
No, they just keep going and going until, they're running marathons.
So we need that same kind of resilience,
Hmm.
but with English.
I love that analogy.
No giving up even when it feels tough.
Yes, celebrate those small wins, Celebrate those moments when you push past your comfort zone and you try something new.
I like that. Okay, I'm feeling pumped up now. But what about those times, though, where you just totally freeze up mid-sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Like your mind goes blank and you feel like you've forgotten everything you ever learned.
Right. That's where techniques like chunking can come in handy.
Chunking.
Yeah, so you basically break down sentences into smaller pieces. You master those pieces, and then you can string them together.
So instead of trying to say, I would like to order a cup of coffee, please, all in one go,
Yeah,
I would break it down.
exactly. I would like to
Okay.
order a cup of
Got it.
gotcha. Coffee, please.
Okay.
It reduces that cognitive overload and it makes speaking feel less overwhelming.
It's like building with Legos.
Yes,
Start small and then build something bigger.
precisely. And as you practice chunking, you'll naturally start speaking in these longer, more fluent sentences without even realizing it.
Chunking. Okay, I'm going to add that to my toolbox. Now, what about shadowing? We talked about that a little bit earlier. But any, pro tips for shadowing?
Choose material that's slightly above your current level. So challenging, but not overwhelming.
Okay.
Start with really short segments, like, a sentence or two, and then gradually increase the length as you get more comfortable.
So baby steps all the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. So how do we take this from, practice mode to real-life conversations?
You gotta create opportunities for meaningful interaction, and you don't need to, fly to England to do that.
Right?
Think about, your hobbies, your interests. Are there any local groups or clubs where you could use your English?
So, if I was into photography, maybe I could find an English-speaking photography club.
Exactly. Or a book club, a cooking class, anything that aligns with your passions. It's about finding those spaces where you can naturally immerse yourself in the language and the culture.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm studying.
Right.
It's like, oh, this is fun. I'm connecting with people.
Exactly, exactly. And what about online resources? There's got to be tons of stuff.
Oh, tons. Language exchange apps are a great way to connect with, someone who's learning your native language. You can help them, they can help you.
Oh, that's cool. So I could practice my English with someone learning Spanish, and then I could help them with their Spanish.
Exactly. Plus, you make new friends, you discover different cultures. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the key is to just get started speaking, no matter how small the steps are.
100%. Yeah. Embrace those mistakes. They're proof that you're learning, that you're pushing yourself.
Like they say, mistakes are just lessons learned or something like that, right?
I couldn't agree more. And remember, this whole journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate those small wins, those little victories along the way, and most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that. Be patient, celebrate the small wins, and have fun. It's about, the joy of connecting with another language, another culture.
Beautifully said.
Well, this has been awesome. I feel like I have like a whole new perspective on how to approach speaking English.
I'm so glad to hear that. And just remember, it's a journey that we're all on. Be kind to yourself, celebrate your progress, and just keep those words flowing.
You got it. And to everyone listening out there, you've got this. Don't let fear hold you back. Just embrace the journey. Have fun with it. And, well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into speaking English fluently. I don't know about you, but I am feeling inspired to go practice.
Me too. Yeah. Let's keep those conversations going, both in English and just in life in general.